Good morning, everybody, and well done for getting to the end of another week of home learning. Today is a slightly different day because we will be celebrating British values. Let me share my screen with you so you can see what's coming up today. Now, British Values Day is what we are going to be focusing on throughout today, not just in this lesson. What are British values, you might ask? Well, values are the things that you believe are important in the way that you live and that you work. And British values are values that the British government believe are important to be a citizen, to be a person in a modern and diverse Britain. So one of the values we're going to look at today, which is incredibly important, is the value of mutual respect and tolerance. Now, mutual respect and tolerance means treating people fairly and treating people without discrimination. My turn, discrimination. Let's have a look at what that big word means. What is discrimination? Discrimination means treating people unfairly because who they are or because they possess certain characteristics. Now, there are lots of ways you can discriminate against a person, and the law lists a few of them. It is against the law to discriminate against someone because of these characteristics. Here they are. You must not discriminate against somebody because of their age. You must not discriminate against somebody because of their disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership. So that means people who are married or in a civil partnership can't be discriminated against. You must not also discriminate against women who are pregnant or who are taking maternity leave. That is time off work after the baby has been born. It is also illegal to discriminate against somebody because of their race, their religion or belief, their sex, that means whether they are male or female, or their sexual orientation. All of these are called protected characteristics. My turn. Protected characteristics. This means they are protected under the law. And in one moment, we're going to look at what that law is. So if somebody, a person or an employer, was to discriminate against somebody because of one of these factors, then it would be illegal. Let's have a look at the law then. You're protected under the Equality Act 2010 from these types of discrimination. The Act provides Britain with a discrimination law, which protects individuals from unfair treatment and promotes a fair and more equal society. As we know, respect and mutual respect and tolerance is one of our values, so the Equality Act is one way of ensuring that this value is upheld throughout our society. And in today's lesson, we are going to look at various examples of where people may have been discriminated against. We will also see some real life examples of actual cases that have been fought through the courts and where people have used the Equality Act to ensure they are free from discrimination. Here's a recent example, well, not too recent, around 10 years ago now, actually. And this woman used to be a presenter. So the headline says, Miriam O'Reilly wins country file ageism claim. Now, as you can probably tell from the word ageism, this case was all about age discrimination. Before I tell you a little bit more about the case, let's find out what age discrimination is. Age discrimination is when you're treated differently because of your age. That could be because of a younger age, or it could be because of an older age. It could be any age. However, there are some exceptions, and you will see this for under every characteristic. There will be some exceptions, and there will be some cases where discrimination will be justified, and therefore it's not illegal to discriminate in those situations. So, for example, students like you, pupils, are not discriminated from age discrimination at school. So you wouldn't be able to say the government are discriminating against me because they're sending me to school and they're not sending my mum or dad to school. That is justifiable, the fact you're being asked to go to school. Therefore, that's not discrimination. This lady here was a presenter on a BBC One show called Countryfile. Now, the show was doing really well. It had lots of viewers. However, one day, the BBC said, "You no longer have your job. We think you've been on the show too long, and they subsequently hired somebody that was 20 years younger." So Miriam O'Reilly went to the court and said, "I believe I'm being discriminated against because I'm older. The BBC have hired somebody much younger, despite the fact I'm still really good at my job and people still enjoy watching my show." The court agreed. They said, yes, there's no justifiable reason for sacking Miriam O'Reilly because she was doing really well at her job. The only reason we can see here is age discrimination, and therefore she won her case. Now let's have a look at another couple of examples. Remember, I said that sometimes it's not illegal if there is a justifiable reason. So here are two examples, and I'd like you to think, has age discrimination occurred in these scenarios? Number one, your employer, that's the person who you work for, refuses to allow you to do a training course because she thinks you're too old, but he allows younger colleagues to do the training. Have a think. Has age discrimination occurred here? Well done if you thought it has. In this situation, there is evidence of age discrimination because the employer hasn't given any other reason why the older colleagues couldn't do the training course, except for saying you're too old. And that's not a good enough reason in the absence of anything else. Let's look at scenario 2. You are 17 and apply for a job on a construction site. That's a building site. The building company refuses to employ under 18s on that site because accident statistics show that it can be dangerous for them. Have a think. Is it discrimination not to allow children or people under 18 years old to work on the construction site? Or is there a good reason for this that makes it justifiable? Well done if you spotted that there is a good enough reason for this that makes it justifiable. The fact that the accident statistics show that it can be dangerous for under 18s or more dangerous for under 18s means that this employer isn't discriminating against under 18s. In fact, the court would probably say he's trying to make them safe or keep them safe. And we know that there are age limits for certain jobs and for certain things you can buy. So for example, you can only buy alcohol once you're over the age of 18. That, however, wouldn't be age discrimination because we know research tells us that if a younger child was to have alcohol or somebody under 18 was to have alcohol, then it's more likely to make them very unwell. Therefore, not selling it to under 18s is justifiable on health reasons. Let's have a look at another protected characteristic. Marriage and civil partnership discrimination. So we know that marriage is when a man and a woman are together, and a civil partnership is either two men or two women. So this is when you're treated differently at work because you are married or in a civil partnership. Marriage can be either between a man and a woman or between partners of the same sex. Civil partnership is between partners of the same sex. So as I said, two men or two women. So an example of extreme discrimination here might be your employer says, anyone who's married isn't getting a pay rise this term or isn't getting a pay rise this year. There would be no justifiable reason for that apart from the fact they are married. That's the reason the employer has given. Therefore, that would be discrimination. And we'll look later on at other examples where this type of discrimination may have occurred. Our third protected characteristic is race, the colour of somebody's skin. This is when you're treated differently because of your race. And unfortunately, this has occurred before in workplaces and in other environments too. The treatment could be a one-off action or as a result of a rule or policy based on race. And this is the really key bit. It doesn't have to be intentional to be unlawful. Let's have a look at our fourth example then. Religion or belief discrimination. This kind of discrimination happens when an individual is treated differently because of their religion or belief, or because they don't have a religion or a belief. Interestingly, discrimination by religion or belief can occur even when both the people, both the discriminator and the person who's being discriminated against, so the victim, when they hold the same religious or philosophical belief. So beliefs can include beliefs about religion, but it could also include beliefs against wider issues such as climate change. So if a person was discriminated against because somebody else didn't believe in their belief and treated them unfairly because of that, then that would also constitute discrimination, and it may be illegal under the Equality Act. Let's have a look at these situations then. Have a think. We have two scenarios here. Has discrimination occurred? A Hindu businessman interviews two women for a job as his personal assistant. In fact, we only have one scenario, but it's a longer one. One is Hindu and the other girl is not religious. The Hindu woman is the best candidate at interview, but he gives the job to the other woman because he thinks his clients, who are mainly Christian or who have no belief, will prefer it. Have a think. A Hindu woman gives the job to a Christian or to a person, who has no beliefs. Has discrimination occurred? This is a slightly trickier example. Well done if you noticed that discrimination has occurred in this situation. It may be easy to think that there is no discrimination here because the Hindu businessman, you might think the Hindu businessman has made sure to give the job to somebody who doesn't share his belief. However, he has discriminated against the Hindu woman simply because she has the same belief. She is the best candidate at interview, therefore she should have been successful in getting the job. However, she has been treated unfairly for a reason that isn't justifiable. This reason here, he thinks his clients will like it better, isn't a justifiable reason to treat somebody differently, especially when they were the best candidate at interview. Let's move on then to our fifth characteristic. Sex discrimination. So sex in this context refers to female being women, and male being men. Unsurprisingly, the Equality Act 2010 says you must not be discriminated against because you are or are not a particular sex. Now, this is one that has been in the news really recently, and actually a lot in the past few years. And you may have heard of the gender pay gap. This is where women have said that in many instances, men who do the same job as them are getting paid more. And I'm going to show you an example now that you might be familiar with. Wimbledon pays equal prize money. So some years ago, Wimbledon, the Wimbledon Tennis Championships, were not offering women and men equal prize money. The winners of the tournament were not receiving the same prize money. However, many women winners claimed that they were being treated unfairly. They said, "We play tennis just like the men, and we won just like the men. So there is no justifiable reason to provide them with much more money than us." So you can see here the champion from 2006. This is a French player, Amélie Mauresmo. She earned £30,000 less than the men's champion in 2006. And this statistic caused women to bring their case to the tennis championships, or to the governing body of the tennis championships, who agreed that men and women are doing the same job. They're both playing tennis matches. Therefore, it would be discriminatory to continue to pay them unequal prize money. And from 2007, both champions were paid equal prize money, both the male and the female. Perhaps you can have a look into other sports or other areas of society. Does a gender pay gap exist in any other sports you know? I know there's been a lot of work in recent years to try and ensure some kind of parity, but some people think a gap still exists. Now, of course, sometimes a gap will be justifiable. So a man might earn more than a woman, or a woman might earn more than a man if, for example, they are better at their job, or if they have been promoted, or if they do a more complicated job, then that would be justifiable. But in this case, they were both playing a tennis match. They both had to play the same number and win the same number of matches in order to get to the final. Therefore, the big gap in prize money wasn't considered justifiable. Let's have a look at our next characteristic, and this is also related to sex. This protected characteristic is the sexual orientation one. So, the Equality Act 2010 says you must not be discriminated against because you're heterosexual. That means a man and a woman attracted to one another. Gay, where two males are attracted to one another. Lesbian, where two females are attracted to one another. Or bisexual, where you're attracted to either sex. So the Equality Act says you cannot be discriminated against whether you or because you or are any of these. That is heterosexual, gay, lesbian, or bisexual. So you wouldn't be able to, just like we've seen with the example of the Hindu businessman, it wouldn't be possible to say you can't get the job because you're heterosexual or because you're gay, for example. That would be discriminatory if you were the best person for the job. Disability. Now, in the Equality Act, disability has a broad meaning. Disability isn't just somebody with a physical disability who can't walk very well, for example. Disability can also mean a mental condition, which has a long-term effect on somebody's ability to do normal day-to-day life. So, you are covered by the Equality Act if you have a condition like HIV or cancer or multiple sclerosis or bone condition, which means you may need to use a wheelchair, for example, even if you're currently able to have a relatively normal life. So you must not be discriminated against if you are disabled. And your employer must put in suitable provisions to the workplace to make sure you can access your job. Otherwise, that could be discriminatory. If you have a condition, for example, which means that you're not able to walk up, let me think. If you have a condition that means you're not able to stare at a screen for very long, and it was a disability, so it's a progressive condition and it's considered as a disability, then your employee would have to put things in place like breaks to make sure that you can have time away from the screen. Otherwise, they could be discriminating against you and treating you unfairly because of your condition. Let's have a look then at our final two. Gender reassignment discrimination. This is a little bit trickier and one you might not be as familiar with. The Equality Act 2010 says that you must not be discriminated against because you are transsexual when your gender identity is different from the gender assigned to you when you were born. So, an example of being transsexual is a person who was born as a female or a woman decides to spend the rest of their life as a man. They cannot be treated differently because they have made this choice, unless, of course, there is a good reason that justifies it. And finally, pregnancy and maternity discrimination. Pregnancy and maternity discrimination is when you're treated unfairly or when women are treated unfairly because you're pregnant, breastfeeding, or because you've recently given birth. You must suffer a disadvantage as a result of the unfair treatment. So an example of this could be a woman has become pregnant and their employer says, well, when you come back to work, you're not going to be able to do the job that you used to be able to do because you will have been off for a long time. Usually after a woman becomes pregnant and has their baby, they have some time off work, a few months, usually around 9 months actually, so that they can bond with the baby. And if their employer said when they come back, you're not going to be able to do the job you used to be able to do because you've been off for so long and I think you will have forgotten it and you probably won't be as good, then that is discriminatory because the employer is treating the worker unfairly because they have been off on maternity leave. And of course, it's likely that if you're away from your job for a few months, you may have forgotten things. However, there is a good reason for this. The woman has been pregnant. Therefore, if they were disadvantaged when they came back to work, then that could be discriminatory and they would be able to make a claim through the Equality Act. Now, this is a really broad topic. Let's recap one more time. What are the different ways in which you could be discriminated against? Age. My turn. Disability. Gender reassignment. Marriage and civil partnership. Pregnancy and maternity. Race. Religion or belief. Sex. Sexual orientation. So there are 9 different ways in which somebody could be discriminated against. And these protected characteristics are protected by the law, the Equality Act 2010. Some forms of discrimination are more common than others. And that's definitely true. Particularly in recent years, we may have seen more examples of age discrimination or race discrimination or religious discrimination, perhaps. Even pregnancy and maternity discrimination. So some are certainly more common than others. If you would ever have time to look at the cases that have been through, that have been dealt with by the courts, but all of them do occur. So it's really important that we are aware of all of them. Now, your task today to really showcase your understanding will be to have a look at all of these situations. And I'm going to do 2 of them with you together. So let's have a think about what we have to do. We need to read each scenario, and they're only short, and we have to decide whether we think the individual in each case is being discriminated against. Now, remember, discrimination may occur and it may be legal if there is a justifiable reason for it, in which case it wouldn't really be called discrimination, it would be called different treatment. So somebody may be treated differently and there may be a good reason for it, like we saw when the younger people weren't able to work on the construction site because of safety concerns, like we saw, or like we see every day, in the fact that younger people, children, are not able to buy certain prohibited items such as alcohol or cigarettes. There are justifiable safety and health reasons behind those decisions that mean they're not discriminatory. So let's have a look at these two scenarios. Emily is 3 months pregnant when she applies for a promotion at her workplace. That means she wants to move up and get paid more money and do maybe a more complicated job. Her boss says that she would be perfect for the role if she wasn't pregnant. They tell her if she applies that she won't get the job because she'll be going off on maternity leave soon. Have a think. Has discrimination occurred? Yes or no? Yes, absolutely. Discrimination has occurred. Why do you think it has occurred? Absolutely. There is no justifiable reason for Emily not getting this job, or at least being in the running for it, because her boss actually said she was perfect for the role. So she should have a really good chance of being able to do it. And being pregnant wouldn't necessarily stop her from doing the role. So there is no justifiable reason for her not to apply. It would be different if the boss sat down with Emily and said, your recent performances haven't been that good, therefore we don't think you're ready for the role yet. Or, you're not that confident at the moment, let's wait until you become a little bit more confident and familiar with what you're doing. However, her boss has said she's perfect for the role if she wasn't pregnant, and that's not a good enough reason not to give someone a chance to apply for a job or to get that job. What type of discrimination has occurred? So you have to think back to our characteristics. What form of discrimination has occurred? Have a think. Well done. It's pregnancy and maternity discrimination because Emily is a pregnant woman. And who is being discriminated against? Is it her boss or is it Emily? Of course, it's Emily. She is the one who is being treated unfairly because she is 3 months pregnant. And many women work right up until they're eight months pregnant. Okay, so that shouldn't make any difference. Now let's look at our second scenario. During an interview, a job applicant tells the potential employer that he has multiple sclerosis. That is a condition that affects your immune system. And you can have lots of wide-ranging symptoms with this, but some people live an entirely normal life and barely notice they have it. However, it does count as a disability, so there's a little clue. The employer decides not to appoint him, even though he's the best candidate they have interviewed, because they think he will need a lot of time off sick. So they've heard the words multiple sclerosis, and even though he's the best candidate, they're saying, no, we're not going to go for him. We think he'll be off sick a lot and that'll be really annoying. Tell me, has discrimination occurred? Correct, it has occurred. What type of discrimination has occurred then? Think back to your protected characteristics. Well done. If you noticed that it's disability discrimination that has occurred in this instance. Finally, who is being discriminated against? So who is being treated unfairly in this situation? Super, it's the job applicant. He's been unfairly treated because he has a disability. He has been prevented from getting the job that he is the best candidate for, and that is unfair. Now, you will find this sheet on the home learning document, and there are 10 or so scenarios for you to read through. For each of the scenarios, you need to read them carefully and decide, has discrimination occurred, what type of discrimination has occurred, and who is being discriminated against. Remember to refer back to the protected characteristics so that you can work out exactly what type of discrimination has occurred. And be careful. If their employee or if the employer or the organisation can prove that there's a good justifiable reason for a decision or the policy, then discrimination may not have occurred. And there will be some examples like that that you will come upon. Now I'm going to unshare my screen with you. I really hope you have enjoyed the lesson and learned a lot. And awareness of this topic is so important for you to be a respectful and tolerant member of our society. Please upload your work to Seesaw, and if you stumble upon any other examples of discrimination in the news, then I'd love to hear about them too. I hope you have a great rest of the day, a fantastic Friday evening, and enjoy your weekend. I'll see you on Monday, Year 6. Bye.